So I called this more free fall examples. An object is dropped from a cliff and hits the ground below 5 seconds later. Neglecting air resistance, find A, the height of the cliff. Okay. Let's go A. And if they're asking me for the height, what are they asking me to find? Okay. What else do I know? What else do I know? Oh, yeah. What else do I know? So I'm looking for an equation that has d, t, a, and vi in it. Oh, cool. Let's use that one. And the d's already by itself? Oh, I like that. D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. Psst, why can't I do that? What's 0? Oh, VI. Great, I'll take that. VI is 0. So you're saying, if I hear you correctly, Elijah, and I think I do, I can just go a half A T squared, and I know how high the cliff is? Hey, great, cool.
But don't you have to do it VI times T?
What's 0 times T? What's 0 times 5? What's 0 times a million? What's 0 times anything?
0.
So if I'm multiplying terms together and one of those terms is a 0, you're saying I can just cross out all of those terms? Cool. 5 squared is 25. Half of negative 9.8 is negative 4.9. It's going to be about negative 124-ish, give or take. What do we get? Negative 122. I was a little off. Negative 122.5. And now let's go sig figs. It looks like 2 sig figs. Okay. Negative 120 meters. What's the negative telling me, Michael?
It's falling down.
Okay. That you, I got to be careful. That it ended up below from where I started from. Right? Because it's position. So we talk about position. B. By the way, this is very similar to some of the questions we did in the last lesson. I think that means I like this question. I like this question. Anyways, what's the velocity of the object just before hitting the ground? The impact velocity. What are they asking me to find there? Oh, good. You know what? I'm going to freeze the screen. Why don't you see if you can find V final on your own? Now, you could use the distance if you want to, but I think I would try using the information that they gave me, the T, the A, and the VI, if at all possible, I think. So I've frozen my screen. You can pick a, let's see. Oh, this isn't too bad at all. I think there's an equation that has the VF like by itself already. I think you get an answer just below 50. So I went with VF equals VI plus AT, and wonderfully, hey Elijah, was VI 0?
Yeah.
Oh, I just crossed it out then. It was 8 times T, and I know my 5 times table, even with decimals. I didn't use a calculator. I know how to go negative 9.8 times 5. By the way, do you guys know the trick for multiplying by 5? Put your pencils down, look up. Times by 10 and divide by 2. All of you can multiply that by 10. Yes, negative 9.8 times 10 would be negative 98. And divide by 2. Negative 49. Because 10 divided by 2 is 5, and I'm better at my 10 times table and my 2 times table, Jordan, than I am at my 5. So if you ever have to do some quick math in your head, there you go. Here is Mr. Newick's useless trivia. C. The average velocity during the fall. Okay, now this is new. How do I find the average of something? We've talked about this. It was a few days ago, but do you remember? Yeah.
1/2 bracket VF plus VF.
It's add them up and divide by 2. There's a formula, but what I'm saying, if you want to find the average between two things, don't you just add them up and divide by 2?
Yeah.
So let's add up the initial and the final, and then divide by 2. I think V average, is that actually on your formula sheet?
Yeah.
Wow, am I too nice? I think dividing by 2 is more happier than multiplying by 1/2. It's the same thing, but that doesn't scare you guys as much. Elijah, what was VI?
0.
Thank you. Plus, what was VF, Elijah?
-49.
Divided by 2. You know, I don't even think I need a calculator because I can go 0 plus -49 in my head. -49. Dividing by 2, I can divide numbers by 2 even if they are decimals. 50 divided by 2 is 25. So what would 49 divided by 2 be? 24. You mean I can be dead on accurate even to one decimal place? Yeah, -24.5. That's the average. That's the average velocity. D. This is a new one. How fast did it start? What was its initial velocity, Perry? 0. What was its final impact velocity? Answer B. Which means somewhere along the way it was going -20 meters per second. Yes? When? Okay, so another nice thing we can answer. We can say, instead of saying, here's the time, find how fast it's traveling, I can say, what if you know how fast it's traveling? Can you tell me the time? Which I think is what it's asking, the time. So let's go T equals question mark. Because this is a brand new one, even though I have a lot of my data listed, I'm quickly going to read DFIC. I'm going to say, well, I know A is -9.8. I know VI was 0. Oh, and that -20, that must be VF. Right? At this point in time. Not the final when it hits the ground, but we're freeze framing, we're pausing the video right now, right when it hits 20 meters per second. So we'll pretend temporarily that's V final. I'm looking for an equation that's got T, A, VI, and VF in it. Is there one? Yeah.
Equals VF minus.
Listen to Matt rewriting the equation in his head. The rewriter miter. Here we go. What do you got? T equals what?
VF minus VI over A.
Yes, it is. Let's say from now on, if you feel comfortable just giving me the new rewritten equation first go, I'm good with that. If you want to just read out the main equation and then we redo the algebra, I'm good with that too. Some kids like to write out the equation and then do the algebra and rewrite it in the format they like, but some kids like to take the next step. So V final is -20 minus V initial is 0 divided by -9 point. Am I going to get an, oh no, I was worried I was going to get a negative time, but I get a negative divided by negative, yes? Nature takes care of itself and says, no, I know time's positive. That's good. It's always nice when the universe bails me out. -20 minus 0. Matt, did I really need to go -0?
No.
Okay, then let's call that the Elijah rule. Divided by -9.8. You know what? It hits 20 meters. If I ignore air resistance, it hits -20 meters per second, exactly 2.040816. Let's go, I'll write down 2.04. How many sig figs? I think I'm going to 2 sig figs in most of this, yes? Is it 2 or 3? Looks like 2, although I haven't been consistent. I did say -24.5. I'm going to go 2 sig figs. Seconds. Okay. And is there an E? I think there was. E. How far it travels during the 3rd second. Do you remember our argument? We talked about this last class. We said, okay, during the 1st second, that's from time 0 to time 1. The 2nd second, it's going to fall further. That's from time 1 to time 2. The 3rd second, it's going to fall even further. This is the 3rd second. The 3rd second is between which 2 times? 2 and 3. That's the key. A lot of kids, when they see third second, they want to go between 3 and 0 or 4 and 3. It's between time 3 and time 2. Now, if you forget, Andrew, did I just show you a quick way that you can DULP and figure out what the third second is? That's what I've always drawn. Okay. So going back to here, I think, do you remember how we did this? How do we find how far, how do we find this distance here? How far it fell there? We said we're going to subtract distance 2 seconds from distance 3 seconds, and whatever's left should be the distance between 3 and 2. Okay, we can do that. So let's make a little note here. How about let's go D3 equals, D2 equals, and then D3 minus D2 equals. And we'll go a line there. We'll kind of divide our I'm running out of room. Hopefully you guys have more room. I'm not sure if I do, so I got to write kind of small here. What are we trying to find? And I think we're going to use this one. VIT plus a half AT squared. I would love to list my data. Jordan, I'm running out of room, so I'm having to break my standard rule right now. I know if I list my data, I'm going to have to go on to the next page. I don't want to. Jordan, any of these 0?
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same equation over here. It's going to be a half AT squared. You'll notice I got lazy here, and I didn't even McKenna write the the VIT. Let's go back to here. D3 equals 0.5, negative 9.8. Which time value am I going to put in here? 3 squared. How far have we traveled from 0 to 3 seconds? 3 squared is 9, negative 9.8. Negative 44.1? Yeah? This is going to be D2. It's going to be a half, negative 9.8 times 2 squared. 2 squared is 4. Half of 9.8 is negative 4.9. Negative 4.9 times 4, 19.6? No? Yes? Negative. So the total distance, the furthest distance, minus the shorter distance. Notice, Elijah, you do get a minus minus in the middle there. I can't even call that a change in distance, can't I? Because I think I went final minus initial if I really want to get fancy schmancy. How far did we fall in second 3? Oh, you want me to do this one in my head? Okay. Negative 4, well, it's going to be roughly minus 20. So I'm going to minus 20 and plus 0.4. So negative 24 plus 24 point, negative 24.5? And this, Curtis, is accurate for anything if we ignore air resistance or in a vacuum. Put your pencils down. Good question, though, or good comment, though. What was that? Good job. Here we go. We did number 2 already last day. We did a ball 1.2 meters above the ground with a velocity of 39. So I'm going to pass on number 2. What I really want to get to is number 3. This is one that was like in your homework. Thrown vertically downwards at 32 meters per second from off a 120-meter cliff. Find the maximum velocity obtained by the ball, the time for the ball to hit the bottom. If the speed, okay, let's see if we can tackle this puppy here. What's A asking us to find? A velocity. Which one? Got to be V final. What else do I know here? What's the distance? Nope. By the way, I don't know the distance. What I do know is the displacement. What's the displacement? Not 120. Why negative? Where are we ending up? Above or below from where we started from? Okay, so we got to say that. Because we're on a cliff looking down. Anything below us is negative. That's the first common mistake kids make on this. And by the way, someone always says 120. It's great. What else? What's that? Do I know my initial velocity? I do. It's not 32. What is it? It's not 0. Why negative 32? Oh, see the word underlined? Oh, okay. So this is good vector practice here. Negative 32. Oh, and I do know A is negative 9.8. This is a tricky question. All right, smarty humans, I'm looking for an equation that has VFD, VI, and A in it. Because I don't know time. Sorry?
VF squared equals 3i squared plus 2g.
This equation doesn't give me VF. It gives me VF squared. So we haven't done one like this yet. How do I get rid of a squared? How would I get the VF by itself? What's the opposite of squaring? Matt? Square root. Really, I'm going to go like this. VF is going to be the square root of VI squared plus 2AD. It's going to be the square root of negative 32 squared plus 2 times negative 9.8 times negative 120. I strongly encourage every one of you to try typing this into your calculator because I almost certainly guarantee you're going to get it wrong. And not because you did it wrong, but because your calculator misinterprets what you want it to do. So try typing this in. I'll do it up here carefully. By the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type all this, get an answer, and then square root my answer, Perry. So I'm going to go I think you're going to get 58.1. Some of you didn't. So here's the first thing all of you on your calculators need to be aware of. AJ, can you read this first term in the square root to me? Say, the whole thing. Negative 32 squared. Say it again. When you say negative 32 squared, I know what you mean. I know that you mean take the number negative 32 and square it. Your calculator does not. By the way, when I square a negative, what should I get? Watch. Your calculator, if you type negative 32 squared, for most of your good scientific calculators, it does not know that you want to square the negative. See it? I got a negative answer and I shouldn't. So if you did not get, in my square root, I got 3,376. First thing you want to be aware of is whenever you're squaring things, it's worth putting the number in brackets and the squared on the outside. That guarantees that your dumb calculator understands our English. Yeah?
If you square a negative number without brackets on there, then shouldn't you get an error?
No. If you square root a negative number, you can't take the square root of a negative. This is correct, by the way. If I write that in, because I have a math degree, if I write that under bedmass, I would go like this. What's the B stand for in bedmass? Are there any brackets there? No. What's the E stand for? What's the 2 on? Writing that, the 2 is only on the 32. Oh, what's that negative in front? That's multiplying by a negative 1. You do that after you square, guys. It is actually correct. It's obscure, but it is correct. What I want you to realize, because we have negative 9.8 acceleration, we've got negative velocities, and a bunch of our equations have squareds in them, if you're going to square a number, bracket the whole number, close bracket, squared, and then you'll always be fine. Or you could just clue in that the negative, when you square it, vanishes, and you could totally skip typing the negative in. I like to see my equation on my calculator exactly match what I've written, because, Michael, it's one of my built-in error checks. I glance, yeah, I think I'm right. So I would type bracket negative 32, close bracket, squared. And then I would go plus 2 times negative 9.8 times negative 120. And by the way, you'll also notice when I handwrite these, Callum, I use brackets to separate the numbers because I think that's clearer. Yes? When I type on my calculator, I would argue that it's easier for me to read that than it is for me to read this. I think because I almost always will end up on a second line, Riley, I find I start to lose track of what brackets go with what bracket. It confuses me. So when I type, I almost always will replace brackets with the times sign. And it's one less key, which I'm really, yes, I've actually thought about that because you got to go open bracket, close bracket, or you can just hit one times sign. Anyhow, inside the square root you get, whoop, Mr. Dewick, what'd you forget? Insert squared. By the way, it's worth you learning how your calculator lets you fix mistakes, yes? Inside the square root, you should get 3,376. Square root, that. V final, 58.1 meters per second. And I'm wrong. Why are we wrong? Ah! The problem with this equation right here is, you'll notice I did not put vector signs on it. It's a scalar equation. It will not give you an answer. It will not always give you an answer. It will give you a vector answer for acceleration and for displacement. But for the velocities, because you're squaring things, you're always going to be losing a negative. And so when you use this equation, you're going to have to stop at the end and say, oh, well, it's not too tough a question to answer. Am I going up or going down? So you got to add the negative afterwards. So I'm going to go, dunk. I'm going to go, dunk, negative. All right. B. What's B asking me to find? Flight time. Okay, this is the first time that I've given you the height of the cliff without the flight time, and this is going to be a bit trickier. But let's write down T equals question mark. I'm looking for an equation that has T, VI, A, and D in it. Which one?
D equals VIT.
Okay. D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. This is the complicated equation. It's a quadratic. How do I know it's got a square? Isn't this one technically also a quadratic? It's a nicer quadratic. This one is yucky because how many t's appear in this equation? 2. You see, Perry, if I try and get this t by itself, I would move this t to the other side. I still got a t over on that side. I don't know. Or, if I was going to get this t by itself, I'd move this t squared over to the other side. I still got a t that I don't know. So, although this is the first equation that we would come to, how many of you know the quadratic formula? If you know the quadratic formula, and you will learn it later on this year in Math 11 and Pre-Calc, there is a way to solve this. Don't write this down. The quadratic formula says this. T equals, what would it be? Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. It looks complicated. It's not. But because you don't know it right now, this is going to be the time when we say, you know what? I did just find VF. Maybe there's another equation that has T in it and VF in it that might make my life a little nicer. So I'm going to go yoink. I've told you, McKenna, I try and avoid using something that I've just found to find something else. I can't all the time. There is an equation that has VF, T, VI, and A in it, not D. Which one? The first one. The first one. Which one? Get the T by itself. This will work as long as I've done A correctly, which is why I spent so much time fussing with my calculator with you folks on A. I've got to depend on this. It's going to be negative 58.1 minus, what was VI? I've scrolled down. Negative 32 all over, what was A? Oh, negative 9.8. Conveniently, Matt, I still have this VI on my calculator, so I'm going to go like this. How many numbers are on the top of this fraction, Riley? Brackets. I'm going to go bracket, negative answer button, because that's going to give me negative 58.10335619, blah, blah, not even rounding off at all, minus negative 32. Make sure you notice there's a difference between your minus sign and your negative sign, close bracket, divided by bracket, negative 9.8, close bracket. Time of flight, 2.66 seconds. How many sig figs am I going to? 4, 2, 3, I'm not going to be fussy. Okay. C. C. If the speed of sound is 330 meters per second, how long will it take for the sound of the impact on the ground to make it back to the top of the cliff if we start timing from when the ball is thrown? Okay. What are they asking me to find? Some kind of a time. Okay. It says we're going to start timing from when the ball is thrown. If we press the stopwatch, how long until the ball hit the ground? 2.66. You know what? Let's start from the ball hitting the ground and figure out how long it would take for us to hear the impact. And how about we just add 2.66 seconds to that answer? Because that would be from when we started the stopwatch. Is that okay? Is that all right? So I'm going to write down T equals. What else do I know? What's the acceleration? Now I'm glad you said that. I don't think sound falls. Right? In fact, let's be real. What is the acceleration of sound? Elijah, what? If it doesn't have one, what would we describe that as a number? I think sound just hits its full speed right away. Oh, speaking of full speed, that's both final and initial. So I'm not going to put a subscript, but it's both. What else do I know? Oh, I know how far it traveled. How high was the cliff? We did figure that out earlier, did we not? I'm not going to use that value. Oh, is it 100? I'm sorry, yes. I was getting it mixed up with, I thought we'd round it off, yeah. And since we're starting from the ground, we can call it positive. Okay. You know what? I mean, I think I can use this. But in this case, Elijah, since the A is 0, I think I can ditch that whole thing. And we actually have your Science 10 equation, which was D equals VT. Right? That's the one you guys did in Science 10 a bunch. What are you trying to get by itself? How would I get the t by itself? Divide by v. Sure. So I think we have this. Distance divided by that. So 120 divided by 330. That's how long it takes the sound to get from the impact back to my ear. $120 divided by 330. Pretty quick. There is going to be some kind of a delay. I would see a puff of dust, and then a split second later I would hear it, but it wouldn't be instant. 0.3636. What about total time? 0.3636 plus the 2.66 that it was in free fall. So from the time we dropped it until the time we hear it hit, that long. .02 seconds. Yeah? So these four equations, they're pretty flexible. We've been doing some good stuff here. I think I got one more. Yeah, one more. No, two more. A ball thrown vertically upwards returns to its starting point in 5.6 seconds. Find its initial velocity. Okay. So if we throw something up and we start a stopwatch, and I catch it again. Apparently it took exactly 5.6 seconds, and we're assuming start and stop at the same height to keep the math nice. We did one last day where we took into account the height that it was released from, and forget it. Well, what are they asking me to find? Well, let's write that. VI equals. What else do I know? What else do I know? Now we're back into free fall. What else do I know? VF is 0? I think that's after impact, but not at impact, right? Yeah.
You divide time by 2, and then VF would be 2.
Oh, if that's what you were suggesting, so you're saying, hey, Mr. Dewick, I know what goes up must come down. Could I divide time by 2 and let VF be 0? Sure, that works. Let's draw a little line down the middle right here, because there's a second way you can do this too, and I'm going to show you both, because sometimes one is better than the other. So you're saying I'm actually going to go up here. I'm going to go T over 2, and then I can say VF is 0? In which case, I'm looking for an equation that has VI, T, A, and VF. I think it's the first one again, isn't it? Get the VI by itself, Riley. Oh.
VF divided by 18.
I don't think you would divide. What's between the VI and the 18? I think you'd minus it over, would you not?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I think VI is going to be VF minus AT. VI is going to be 0 minus negative 9.8 times 5.6 over 2. Which is what? Should get a positive answer because it's going up, right? 0 minus negative 9.8 times 5.6 over 2. Do you get 27.444? Sorry, 27.44? Or no? Yes, no, yes, no, yes? Yes? Okay. There's another way to do it. We have so we start out the same way. VI equals, I don't know, t equals 5.6, a equals negative 9.8. You actually do know the final velocity. Not as a number, but you know what it's the same as. What's it the same as? I could say V final equals negative V initial. And then if I take that equation that says VF equals VI plus AT, if I take this equation here, I could write it as negative VI equals VI plus negative 9.8 times 5.6. Let's get all the VI's to the same side. How would I move this VI over to this side? What's in front of the VI? It's invisible. A little positive sign? Yes, yes. So I would get negative VI minus VI equals negative 9.8 times 5.6. What's negative VI take away VI? They don't cancel. Negative 2 VI's. Yeah, they're like terms. And how would I get the VI by itself? Running out of room, Mr. Duick. Oh, I love this, though. Yeah, move it up, move it up, move it up. Except I lost a negative along the way there. That negative went with that guy. How would I get the VI by itself? What's the negative 2 doing? Timesing, so how would I move it over? In fact, you're going to get VI equals negative 9.8 times 5.6 over 2. You're going to get a negative 9.8 on the top, just like here, a 5.6 on the top, just like here, and a 2 on the bottom, just like here. It's actually the same thing, Sam in disguise. Which one's better? I don't know. I'll be honest, because I'm comfortable with the algebra, I would do the right-hand side method because I could rearrange the equation in my head. But I have no problem, Michael, if you just say, you know, what goes up must come down. I'll divide the time by 2, and then you get to use a 0, and all of you are like, oh, is my 0 times stable? I can get at my 0 times. Yeah, that's fine, too. They're both valid. My gun number 5. Ball thrown vertically upwards at 35 meters per second. Calculate the velocity after blah, 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 blah. Calculate the height. How much time passes before the ball hits the ground? Sure, let's try this and we'll wrap it up. 5A. I think they want us to find a velocity. Which one? Final or initial? Got to be a final. Got to be a final. So let's go. V final equals question mark. V initial equals 35. Woohoo! A equals negative 9.8. Woohoo! T equals 4.2. I'm looking for an equation that has VF, VI, A, and T in it. Oh, the first one, and the VF's by itself already. Oh, how often does that happen? Not very often. I like that. VF equals VI plus AT. Draw a little arrow. VF equals, what was VI? 35 plus negative 9.8 times 4.2. You get a negative or a positive answer here? You get a negative? What's that mean? It means the ball already reached its peak. In fact, I can tell you it takes less than 4.2 seconds to get to the top. Is it negative close to 0, or is it negative a bigger number? What do you get, Michael? What is the, what'd you get? Negative 6.16. Anybody else? So maybe a half a second after reaching the top. Because I think after 1 second, it would be going negative 9.8 meters per second. See, I got 9.8. So around half a second after reaching the top. B. Calculate the height of the ball. Meters per second. Thank you, Mr. Dewick. Thank you, Andrew. Candy for you later. B. What it asks me to find now? Oh, distance. Okay. Oh, let's go black, Mr. Dewick. That's what you've been doing. Ooh, I think. Like, I could use V final, but look, can't I go D equals VIT plus a half AT squared? I know VI, check. I know T, 4.2, check. I know A, negative 9.8, check. I know 4.2, time, check. Oh, this is straight plug and chug. It's kind of nice. 2 times in a row, I didn't have to rewrite the equation. Doesn't happen very often, but I'll take it. It's going to be 35 times 4.2 plus a half times negative 9.8 times 4.2. All right, Dewick. Squared? How good are you? Can you do this one in your head? 35 times 4 is going to be 140 with a 0.2. No, I'm going to have to wimp out and go to my crutch. Oh. This is why I like having a calculator. It lets me edit, because I'm missing 35 times 4.2 plus a half, negative 9.8, 4.2 squared, and we get, do you get 60.564? Does that make sense? Are we above or below where we started from? Are we above or below from where we started from? Above, so I'm expecting a pause. There's like, some built-in error checks. Is Jordan alive? Okay, just making sure. Had my doubts. Seen you play. 60 point, I guess, well, I'm going to go 60.564, and then I'll round it off. How many sig figs? I guess 61 meters, because it looks like we're going to 2 sig figs in most of our data. C. What are they asking me to find? Okay, find it. Well, let's list what we have. T equals question mark. VI is 32. A is negative 9.8. I need something else. VI is 35? 35. I got the 32 from the last question on my brain. Thank you. I need one more thing.
Yeah, it equals 0. The maximum height and then the answer by 2.
Could do that and double it. You know what? That's going to be more work than if I say I know V final.
Oh, negative.
I'm going to, because remember I told you last year there's 2 ways, and I flip-flop. I use your method if I've already found time to the top. Yeah, I'll just double it. But here, since we don't know the time to the top, let's say we know what goes up must come down, because I think we can get to T in 1 step now. And I'm lazy enough, if I can save myself 2 lines of writing, Riley, I'll save myself 2 lines of writing. Because there is an equation that has T, VI, A, and VF in it, and then you can get the T by itself. I'm pretty sure it's T equals VF minus VI all over A. It's negative 35 minus 35 all over negative 9.8. It's going to be roughly 70 divided by 10. It's going to be around 7 seconds. I'm going to say about 7.1. Check me. Let's see. I'm going to go 7.14. Oh! That was a complete guess. Pretty good, though. I got some game. Come on, admit it. You're a little jealous of my... Okay, fine. When I grow up, I want to be a math nerd like you. Oh, don't you? What I want you to realize, AJ, is this. Those 4 equations, if you list your data, and sometimes if you stop to think about the situation because you can get one more piece of data by thinking about it, like a V final, like a, hey, it's 0 at the top, you can handle pretty much anything I throw at you. Sometimes it may be a 2-stepper. We did one where we had to use one of our answers to find our next. Okay, sometimes. But for the most part, we're pretty good. How many of you finished the free fall sheet? Good. There's 20 minutes left. So the one that I handed out last day, the free fall sheet, you can try the rest of it. You may have some trouble with the graph question. I'll talk about that when I see you next on Tuesday. But that's your goal for Tuesday. If you hustle, you have no homework. Let me double check. Have I got, well, first of all, I got to pause the video.